What up, Tube? In the garage today. Today I'm gonna put a license plate box in the trunk lid there for the 50. Stay tuned. Putting this license plate box that I got into the trunk lid of the 50. I'll explain how I measured and marked it and what I'm doing with that tape measure, seamstress tape taped up to the trunk. This was just a simple license plate box. I think I bought it for $4 or $5 on eBay. It already had a license plate light hole in there and was bent, and it was cheap enough that yeah, usually I'll make something like that, but it was cheap enough that yeah, it didn't seem worthwhile making. So I ordered that with a couple other things and got it fairly quick. I put this hole in here. So basically in my car, I'm gonna run this switch, and it's just a simple switch. It'll have a trunk popper on it. That way I can reach in behind my license plate, pop the switch and open the trunk. I'll put that on some keyed power so that you can't do it without the keys in the ignition. That way nobody's getting in my trunk without having the thing started. But pretty simple, straightforward. We're just gonna cut a hole and weld it up. The important thing when you're doing something like this is to make sure it's centered, obviously. I like to use this flexible seamstress measuring tape. Some guys give me a hard time for having it around the shop, but I'll tell you what, on curves, it works great. I mean, this thing curves this way and then back out. So getting a regular tape measure on that's really hard. So basically what I do is I line it up, put tape measure, find a good spot, because the side's curved, so it's hard to know where to measure from. So I find a good spot where I got the same reveal all the way across and just tape that on there. I found the center of this license plate box, figured out how many inches it is to the side of each, and the center on the hood, on the deck lid here, and then just measured out and marked out my square. I'm gonna try and get that hole cut in there as clean as possible, make it a nice tight fit, and then weld it up. I got it all cut out and just placed in there. I always cut my mark a little short and then grind, and I don't know in the high speed if it's easy to catch, but you can see I'll cut with the cutting wheel and then come back with the grinder and just kind of buff that edge back to where it needs to be. Right now it's a little tight fitting. I'm gonna clean it up some more and get it a little looser, that way I have a place for that tack weld to sit real nice. And then this trunk latch actually sits right where this license plate box is now. So I had to remove the latch out of there, and we'll have to use like a bear claw latch or something simple, which is always good on these old cars anyways, to replace those old ass latches, because they don't ever seem to either want to latch or come unlatched. So I'll put probably an auto lock bear claw latch in there. They're like $30 or something like that. It's super simple, easy to hook up and use, and it'll actually flip-flop the latch from the trunk side to in the car, and then put the striker plate on the trunk side too. So I'll have plenty of room to do that underneath here. But yeah, so I'm gonna do a little bit more fitment, a little bit of grinding, get rid of all this paint so I can weld to a clean surface, and then get it all welded up in there for you. So while I was getting that put in there, I realized that I never measured the box itself to make sure it was square. So lesson learned if you buy parts from somewhere else. Always measure once first before you just assume that something is built square. So I got to measuring, and the bottom was lined up and it was a little off, so I got some clamps out and made it fit, measured a couple times and made it square, and realized now that it's square, my opening, which I traced directly from my piece that I was putting in there, is now got a big gap in the top. So measure twice, cut once. I should have measured that opening that I had scribed out there before I cut it. I just assumed that the box was square, and it kind of bit me in the ass a little bit. So now I got a huge gap there. I guess I'll show you what I do to fill that. I've seen people use curtain rod or metal hangers, things like that, while they weld as a filler. I do something similar and just use a little strip of sheet metal, and I like to try and fill it and get that sheet metal in there as flat as possible, even though you won't see the back side of this because it's in the inner structure of the trunk. Having pieces of steel overlapped causes rust areas for rust in the future. So I'm gonna cut a little tiny strip as it gets to the point part of there, way down in here. Here's pretty easy, it's pretty wide, but as it gets super small down there, obviously the welder, when you hit it with the MIG welder, it's just gonna explode. So I'll get most of the bigger gap section filled there, and then do a couple tacks on either side, fill it with weld, grind it down. You'll never be able to tell, and then on the back side you won't have a second piece of overlapping metal or filler metal or something you did there. Yeah, that's just how I was taught how to do it. The other way works too, where you would just take a piece of metal or something and put it back behind it and weld down to it. But then you have this huge gap you either need to fill with Bondo or weld or whatever you're using. Yeah, I'm gonna cut a piece of steel and put it in there and have it be as correct as possible. So there it is, all tacked in. I got that spot filled with a piece of metal, and it looks good. You'll never be able to tell, and then from the backside you don't have overlapped metal that's just tack welded in. So I like doing it that way with a nice filler piece. If you guys have been watching these videos, I've had a couple people ask about the finishing after the step here. So if you notice, if you look close, these welds, the heads on them, I don't have all the way ground down yet. Using that 36 grit and 4-inch wheel is pretty violent, so I grind down as much as I can, but I don't go all the way down. After I'm ready and I get a bunch of fab stuff done, usually I pick a day and I just grind everything. So I'll use some higher grit paper and a little angle grinder, and just smooth it out better, get those welds all the way down to sheet metal and super smooth. That way it's a more finished look. But yeah, all these videos I've been doing, I haven't been taking the welds all the way down. I don't leave them like that and just Bondo over it. I do take a higher grit paper and take my time and really just get them as smooth as possible. I'm not a professional metal worker, but I definitely want to try and get the bones of the car structurally sound. I don't want to have to go back years later and redo a bunch of body work because I thought I was doing the right thing and I wasn't. So yeah, I'd like to use as little filler as possible. So I'll take a higher grit sandpaper and hit the rest of these welds and get them super smooth. yeah, that's it. Oh, the other thing I did want to say is while I'm grinding in the videos, I'm sure you can see me put my hand over. That's me just checking the temperature when I'm welding and grinding. You can definitely, obviously, warp a panel when you get it too hot welding. The same is true for when you're grinding. So be careful when you're grinding. Don't overdo it. Take your time. That wheel is heating that steel up pretty hot. So take your time. Do a little, be patient. Patience is super, super important when it comes to sheet metal work. So hopefully you liked what you saw here today. It was a pretty simple procedure, simple video. Now I have that license plate in the back of the trunk and the deck lid for the trunk. So a little cleaner look. I'm excited to have that little button there as well. You know, more like a modern car where you go to the back and you hit that button, open the trunk. There'll be one of those on the car too. So I appreciate you tuning in. Next time we'll be doing a little more fab work. I got a couple fab videos that go up. You guys seem to like the fab videos a little more than anything else, so I'm gonna try and do a bunch of those. So as always, click the link below, red button, subscribe, give it a thumbs up and a like, comment, share it with your friends. Have a good day, everybody.